All right, what's happening, everyone? Episode whatever, MC Podcasting. This week we had, or this episode we had Shane Todd on, the local funny man. He didn't tell us that much jokes, did he, Stephen?
Wasn't really that funny. I'm joking. He's a good lad.
So, do we like him or not? Yes or no?
Yeah, he's a good lad.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that's no
thumbs
problem.
up.
And he also said he'll come back on in a few months' time, so we'll schedule him in for April.
A few months, which is 2 months.
A few months is it's a month in it, so end of March. My birthday, 31st of March. Boom.
Yeah,
I'll
sorted.
Can I message him now? Just make sure.
Message him now. Just lock that one in.
You are now listening to MCPodcasting.
There he is.
Yeah, what's happening?
How's it going, man? Anyway, thanks for coming on.
Going good, no worries. Are we on, or is this our pre-on chat?
We had this conversation before. I always feel awkward doing pre-podcast chats, so I just jump in straight away because you're like, "How's it going, mate?" And then you go, "I'm gonna record." All right, how's it going, mate?
Yeah. I'm 100% the same, and it's also leaving as well. You know, if you say to someone at the end of a podcast, you go, "So let's mate, appreciate you coming on, cheers," and then sometimes you end the meeting and they're going, "So yeah, thanks for that," and then you've already ended, and you just see a frozen image of their face as Zoom closes.
Or it's worse when you say, "All right, well, mate, see you later," and he's like, "All right, bye-bye," and he's taking forever to hang up. You're like, hang up quick.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I like that we're straight into it. That's what I'm all about.
Yeah. Before we really start, mate, do you want to grab a hat or anything? Because we're doing a hat thing tonight.
Do you know what? I genuinely I don't look good in hats at all.
Neither does Stephen, but he still wears one.
Yeah, I know, but I have a really long head and I can't grow a beard, so I have nothing to distract from the fact that I just look like when I wear a hat, I look like I'm going to Disney to meet wrestlers. If you get me dressed.
I don't have any hair, so it's just kind of makes it.
He hates it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm still working with a full hair. Oh wow, genuinely, you've really committed that. I thought you meant you were losing a little bit, but
I was pure. I had hair before lockdown, but it was like, right, he should probably shave that. And then I just went, right, lockdown, shave the fuck out of that.
Daniel, could you do me a favor? Put your hat back on immediately, please.
Not 10, not me.
So what it is, my name comes up, I'm Stephen. My name comes up as Daniel.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm Stephen.
Right. I just don't look good in hats. Also have a great head of hair, so what's the point of me wearing a hat?
Well, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. What really annoys me is people who have hair and shave it. I'm like, you need to embrace that. Just what are you doing? I'm the one that needs to be bald. What are you doing?
I don't know if you know the comedian Connor Keys, who's big in the Belfast comedy scene. He's from Oma and he really good stand-up. He, for years, was basically bald, had a shaved head, right down to the wire, and I thought it's because he was going bald. And then he basically one day just said that he'd only been doing that because his brother went bald. So then Connor just grew a full head of hair back. He's like, I've always had hair, I just couldn't be bothered growing it. But despite his brother, he grew his hair back and then just had one of the best quiffs I've ever seen in my life.
It's kind of like Scott Brown. Do you ever see Scott Brown? Completely shaves his head, but when he grows it out, he has a perfect hairline and a perfect head of hair.
He shoots being bald, doesn't he? He doesn't suit a head of hair.
I'm a hard fella.
Yeah, he looks very intimidating. It's like whenever Roy Keane was playing for Man United, he always shaved his head. He looked a bit more tense, but whenever he grows his hair out, he looks a bit more friendly that way.
I mean, I used to shave my head up until I was about 16. I used to just do it one all over. Yeah. And I just didn't look right. You know what I mean? Looking back on it, it wasn't a good look.
No, exactly. Yeah, but before we start recording there, I was talking to Stephen about your show you do on, was it BBC Radio Ulster? I think it's Rave and Lockdown or Rave Lockdown with Dave Elliott.
Rave Lockdown, yeah.
That's some gig, to be fair. Cause I was listening to it and I was like, this seems like just two mates chilling out. This is something you probably would have done anyway, but now you're getting paid for it.
Yeah, well, that's the way we try and look at it. We've been on Radio Ulster for about 4 years with just a show called The Shane Todd Show, and it was just a way for me to kind of find my feet on radio and experiment a wee bit. And the first version of the show I was doing was, we used to be on a Saturday morning and a Wednesday night, and the show I was trying to do everything. I was trying to do sketches, stand-up, interviews, play music. It's just a wee bit all over the place, but I enjoyed doing it. And then at the start of lockdown, we were coming back for another series. And up until then, like I have a real eclectic music taste. I like soul, I like rock, I like R&B. But so we were playing a lot of different stuff, and then it started lockdown. The weather was unreal on the first show of the series we were doing. And it was just a class day. And I was sort of thinking, well, what would I be listening to if I was at home in the garden drinking a cider? So we just asked if we could play all those songs, like No Limits and Mr. Vane and all that. And it's really Ulster, like, so I thought there's no mission they're going to agree to this, but I thought it was worth asking. And then to be fair to them, they were like, go for it. You can give it a go. And it's the closest buzz I've had to something like stand-up that isn't stand-up, just because we were live and all of a sudden the text machine was like blowing up. There was all these emails and we'd never had that up until that point. So that's what we try and do with the show. We try and make it seem like you're sitting in a room or you're sitting in a garden with me and Dave, and we're kind of talking shit and playing good music, and people have really got into it. So yeah, it's the sort of thing. I don't know how we're getting paid to do it, but until someone comes and sees us about it, we're just going to keep trying to get away with it.
Yeah, because how do you find really the whole format of radio? Because obviously you have your own podcast, you do your own stand-up and shows and stuff, but like actually having like a boss over you do you have a boss over you actually in that show to tell you what to do? So how do you find that set up in terms of like your jokes? Like, do you need to get someone to read over them before you say it, or is it all kind of just improv?
I think you have to just build up that trust that you're not going to be a complete maniac and swear and say inappropriate stuff and all that. That takes a wee bit of time, because they wouldn't let us go live for a couple of series of the show.
Serious?
Just because, like when you do stand up, you're always trying to get a reaction. You try and push the envelope, and on stage I can say whatever I want, but there's bosses. There's like a producer when you're doing the show, but Dan, who produces the show, also separately produces my podcast outside of work. So that dynamic was already there. But the only thing they'll ask to see beforehand is the tracks. I just pick the tracks on a Wednesday for Friday to make sure that they've got them in the system. And then that's it. It's honestly just like free reign. Like in the building at the time, there's nobody else really there. So we could, like if Dave and I wanted to go on some sort of political rant, we probably could get away with it for about 15 minutes before they take us off air. But like we haven't done anything too bad just yet. Like there's been a few shout outs that if you don't read them properly and you read them out, like it would be bad.
Yeah. Do you ever think though, like do you ever go when as soon as you say something, then you come home and you think, God, should I have said that? Does that ever happen to you? Because especially the climate these days.
100%. Although, yeah, you mean with like cancel culture, do you? And that kind of, and offense and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
With radio, got to be way more careful than stand up or podcasts. So I'm really aware of it when I'm on air on radio. With podcasts and stand up, my argument is you never like want to give anyone a bad night or personally offend everyone, but anything you mention could offend someone. So if you're really that worried about it, you're not going to be yourself. You're going to sort of you're going to if you're too safe, then that's not funny. Like that's not funny at all. So I probably started taking more risks recently with stand up and the sort of things I'm talking about, because if you can find the funny in the thing, then it shouldn't be offensive. But you're always going to get someone who you could do a whole set talking about racial things, talking about sexuality, all that sort of stuff, and then literally you could do a bit about Dunnes Stores, and somebody you could do a bit about horrific Troubles material, and then somebody could come up the after and go, "You said Dunnes Stores wasn't upmarket," and they're raging about it. So everything can offend someone. So I just try not to think about it. Cancel culture is definitely a thing, but I think unless you've gone out to really be horrifically bad to someone, you'll be all right. Like,
but just as long as you keep the Dunnes Stores people on check, you're all right.
Yeah.
What about Primark?
Yeah, well, I'm a brand. Here's the thing: Primark became such a punchline that you have to stop doing it. It's like one of those things, like when Primark burnt down, if you had a gig that week, you were all right. But you knew if you were doing a gig after that, somebody was going to have a bit about it. And that's why when stand-up comes back, which I hope it's only going to be a couple of months before we can do outdoor shows, I'm not going to go near any COVID material because everyone's going to have it. Everyone's going to have it. And it's kind of, I'm actually starting to get sick of, I mean, I've been doing stand-up for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
See, even just local humor in general, like sometimes you can have a belter bit, and I wouldn't rule out doing stuff. If you have a belter of a bit, then it's a belter and it doesn't matter what it's about. But even with sketches and stuff, I'm trying to just get away from that all a wee bit more, just because I feel like people are doing the same stuff.
It's a bit different, though, your radio show, because people kind of come on to hear you and Dave, to be fair, and it's not like a standard radio show people were listening to driving their car. People listening to you are actually coming in for your humor and your take on society, aren't they? Rather than actually just somewhat just listening to the radio and coming across you.
I think it's escapism. It's like, that's why we wanted to play all that sort of music, because this sounds really wanky, like, but music can take you to like a different place in your head a wee bit, and especially the old school stuff. It definitely takes me back to like mid to late 90s when I would have been sitting in the garden, and that's playing speakers somewhere. If I'm down my granny's garden, someone down the road is playing it, and you can hear it. So yeah, people are kind of tuning in for us, which is great, because that slot of like, 6 o'clock on a Friday, people are already home. People are driving home. They're not typically, it's not peak radio time. So the fact that we're getting people in at that time is class. And I just think it's a good time, because you forget it's the weekend. So what we're trying to do is let people know that, like, here, it's Friday, in some way, like, you need to remember that it's a weekend. So we love doing it. And the feedback to it surprises us, because it is just too bad. Like, Dave is my best. I give Dave a lot of shit, and the other way around, and we sort of slag each other. We've like made a career basically out of slagging each other off, but we are best mates. So it's the best thing.
No, you can definitely tell, because I didn't know this here. You used to have your own podcast a few years ago. Was it Boytown it was calling it?
Yeah, we essentially, how it started is me, Dave, and our mate Michael went to LA because we wanted to shoot a documentary. So we got turned down from TV to go and do it. So we just thought, let's go shoot it ourselves. And which was stupid, because we were like, we'll shoot it, we'll show it to them, and then they'll go, we made a stupid mistake. We showed it to them, and they went, no, well, we're right. So we went we went to LA, and my mate Jack lives out there, and he showed us around. He like picked us up, and it was like something out of a movie. Like, he picked us up in a convertible, and he drove us around LA, and we were like, this was about 5 years ago, maybe more. And he took us to this area called Boys Town. We just happened to be like going through it, and it's like a big gay area of LA. And I turned to Dave and said, Boys Town is a brilliant name for a podcast. We should start a podcast and call it Boys Town. And then by the time we got home, we forgot the name of it, and we just called it Boy Town. So that's where that name came from. So it essentially came from me and Dave being in a really fashionable gay district and going and getting inspired for the podcast. We were like, this is what it's all about. Yeah. So we did the podcast for years, and it was really like, it got to the point where we used to do this thing on it called Tweetback as a feature, where I would make Dave tweet something. So I would tell him what to write, and I would send him a picture he hadn't seen up until that point, and he had to tweet it out, and I had to stay up for the whole podcast, and then you could delete it, and you were trying to see who could get the other person more retweets. What you didn't want, though, was retweets, because it started off fairly like tame.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons we stopped doing the podcast, because I couldn't hack some of the stuff that he was making me put out.
Really? Was it that bad?
Because at the time, like, again, this sounds horrendous, but because I had a good amount of followers, and I had the old blue tick, so people were seeing it. That's not me bragging. That's me going, people were unfortunately seeing it. He was making me tweet all the last 5 years of Miss Northern Ireland and all these modeling agency bosses, and I wanted to do a calendar called Sexy NI, and then photoshopped image of me with all these models around me. And he made my ears bigger. He got Photoshop, and he made my ears bigger, and gave me, it sounds weird, but he gave me really long fingers, and people got really into it, and they knew to look out for it every week. So the amount of retweets just went up and up. And I remember doing a live podcast. He made me tweet, this is so bad. He made me tweet Gerry Adams and call him daddy. So I was calling Gerry Adams daddy. And I think I was asking if I could touch his beard. And do you know Martin Rogan? Big Rogie, the boxer?
Yeah.
I made Dave tweet Rogie and say I was going to knock his fuck in. and it just got to the point where it was like, this is too much. But we did the podcast for years and only stopped last year, but we did a Christmas reunion there and stuff, and it was great fun.
And now you're doing your own podcast.
Is it Tea With Me?
Tea With Me, which is kind of in a way the same idea as radio. It's just me chatting to people like I would over just a cup of tea. And I'm very dull. Like, I don't really drink. The way I like to meet up with friends and stuff is just meet them at a coffee shop and have a cup of tea. So that started about a year ago, and I think we're about to hit 100 episodes. And it's been good, like, because it's a way through lockdown of me to just feel like I'm doing something. Mm-hmm. It's obviously not stand-up, but if you're trying to think of funny stuff, or if you've got a guest on, you're trying to react to them in a funny way. So it's sort of... It's like a boxer sparring in a way. It's like just feeling like you're doing something.
No, that's exactly the way I see a podcast for a comedian, because they can kind of practice their jokes, kind of get them out there before they actually perform to an audience, even though your podcast does go out to a big audience, but you're not getting initial reaction. So you can kind of try something, and if it fails, you can kind of brush it off. So that's why a podcast for someone like yourself is just spot on. And obviously you had some big guests on as well, and they can kind of throw back and forth and all too. No, it's really good. Obviously, one of your guests we need to throw out there is obviously, was it Jimmy Dornan? How the fuck do you pull that off?
Do you know, it's just when here's the thing, two good-looking guys like us.
Who else was on it?
We'll naturally know about each other.
Just a magnet towards each other and just...
Yeah, I didn't even need to contact them. It's just we just find each other looking like this. So, no, the short story is he's from Hollywood as well. It's a small town. It's like everybody knows everybody. And years ago, I'm trying to remember how I got chatting to him. Years ago, when I started doing sketches online, he was acting. He just, I think, gone from modeling into acting, so he was new to acting. I knew him as like a fairly well-known guy from Hollywood, and I asked him would he retweet a video on Twitter, and he did. And we got chatting just a little bit on like Twitter years ago, and then we just kind of ran into each other a couple of times out for drinks in the town, and
we'd run in 5 different circles.
And yeah, but I gotta say he's not there. I wouldn't say I'm often in contact with people with a high profile like that. Like, unfortunately, I have a lot of just normal mates, just non-famous mates, but I am trying to get rid of them. I'm trying to gradually with celebrities, but I asked him to do the podcast. He doesn't normally do stuff like that, but I've found that with podcast guests, usually the higher profile, the more just dead on and down to earth they are. Yeah. I swear I'm not just saying this, I haven't had anybody on that I haven't liked, or I haven't had anybody on that wasn't generous with.
Well, we're still sort of holding our opinion on you yet.
Yeah, wait till it's over. Then we'll judge
so
you.
Far, everyone's been signed. This could go fucking belly up, like.
Yeah, no. It definitely could, and it will. But yeah, I mean, me and Jamie or JD, as I call him, JD. We're just two close personal friends. That's all there is to it, and it's a good time. But just really, really down to earth guy, just very, very, very nice, and he just did a movie there because he was really funny on the podcast. Like, I think that's what a lot of people thought was class, that he was very, very funny. Mm-hmm, he doesn't take himself too seriously, which you sort of think maybe an actor an actor would, but he's up for taking the piss out of himself. And he just did a movie there with Kirsten Wiig from Bridesmaids. He plays a comedy part in it, which is very fucking funny. So yeah, everybody I've had on has been very sound, and nobody really has said no. I mean, I sent Snoop Dogg an Instagram message to see what he's doing, and he didn't get back to me. But apart from that, everyone's been dead on about it.
Snoop didn't get back to you? Oh, come on, coming on here next
coming
week.
On here.
Yeah. Snip D-O-double-G, like.
We come Snip for sure.
If we can fit him in.
But that's something like.
Do you know what's funny? You said we call him Snoop for short, but that's just what everybody calls him.
Oh, he lied to me. He said that was like a personal nickname. That's something that's going. People are going to say to us in a few weeks' time, but like, oh, you had Shane Todd on your podcast. I'm like, here, know what it is? Just like me and Shane are like just like close friends and all too. We run in the same,
we'll go back.
Running the same circle of friends, drinking the same bars and all too. But you're in a lockdown.
Yeah.
I know, but same thing.
Same thing. Yeah, we're just Zooming all the time. Yeah, I mean, generally, like especially in lockdown, it was a good time to start a podcast because you can get chatting to people that you wouldn't normally or that wouldn't have time for it. I mean, you could have got me anytime. I just have time. I'm not a busy person. Like I'm always about. But yeah, people are very sound. Like I think it's a local thing. I think people from Belfast and all that, like just.
Yeah, I know, but like, see, in terms of yourself, Shane, I know you're probably gonna be a bit modest here, but you are becoming quite well known.
Yes. Yeah, no. Forget the modesty. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's about time. And
14 years.
I think, yeah. It's an overnight success story. I started stand up 14 years ago whenever I was 4. But yeah, do you know what? It's something I've been like. I think because of social media, sometimes people think if they discover you on social media, they think that you must have just started or you're fairly new to it. But yeah, I started doing stand up when I was 18. And that's a long time ago, and been doing sketches online for ages. And you kind of like I've been full time for about 5 years, and that in itself feels like success to me. That is like the fact that I've been able to like make a job out of it and fucking meet the mortgage payments or whatever. Like genuinely, that is like success to me. That's like
the dream.
That's the dream. Yeah, 100%. Genuinely anything after that is a bonus, and getting to do big shows or TV things is great. But it's when I decided to go full time at this, like I just thought as long as I can just get by, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of kicking on a wee bit with like live shows are getting bigger and there's some more TV stuff happening. But I mean, I've been knocking on the door trying to make things happen for years and years. Like, so it probably looks like a quick thing, but it has been a very slow journey, which is probably good though, because that's given me time to actually get good at the things I'm trying to do. I was like trying to get a TV show about 10 years ago. In reality, I wouldn't have been ready for it and it would have been shit. So you have to like learn and you have to like fail and do things badly and over time like get good at them. So it's been a long time, but it's been fun, and like I do treat it that like if it could end at any time. Like you could stop being popular, you can stop being funny. Like that's a thing that you see with some comedians are huge all of a sudden, and then the next year or two they're not. So I just enjoy it while it lasts. I just keep trying to get away with it for as long as I can.
I think the reason I ask that there is because, as you said, like you've been doing it for a while now. I feel like we've almost grew up with you posting on social media and stuff and doing your Mike McGoldrick videos and stuff and all too. But do you think for you personally, when you've got somewhat successful now, there's an expectancy of people in Belfast, for example, when they see you, they're like, "Oh, Shane, let's get a photo," and you're like, "I can't, it's fucking COVID." They're like, "For fuck's sake, he's getting too big for his boots now." Do you think people expect things off you now because they almost grew up with you? If that makes sense.
It's like there's the funny guy, make me laugh.
Yeah, dance monkey.
That happens less than you would think. Like 99 out of 100 people that you meet just literally want to give you a thumbs up and say, "All right, mate," and that's it. Or yeah, if they want to get a photo or something. But I've had very few bad experiences with people that I don't know that have kind of come up to me. I mean, it's always a nice thing. It's good that you feel like you're doing something right when people want to come and chat to you, and I'm always happy to do it. I think the only thing I might get weird with is because I haven't been like out in public. I have a newborn son with my son.
Well, congratulations.
That's the only thing I could potentially get weird about. You know, I'm always happy to do a photo, but if it was with my son or whatever, I might just say like, "Oh, I'll just touch your shoulder or something instead."
Yeah.
But the thing about people saying like be funny or whatever, the only time I've really had that happen is I was at a wedding a couple of years ago, and a guy had been so dead on during the day. He'd come up to me and he was doing a speech, and he was like, "I'm all nervous about it." And I was like, "Just slow it down. That's all you need to do." He did a speech. Good chatting to him later in the night, and I don't really drink, so I was just like having a couple of pints. He's blocked at this point at the bar in front of loads of people. He's like, "Here's the funny man now." He's like, "You going to tell us a joke?" And I just politely try and get out of it. I'm like, "No," I was like, "I'm not." I'm like, "Have a whip around, see if you can raise a few quid." But I'm like being very like, I'm giving him a way out of this. I'm letting him know it doesn't have to come to what it's going to come to. And he's like, "Fuck's sake." He's like, "You wouldn't even tell us a joke." But it's the way he's doing it. It's like prickly. You know what I mean? He's trying to make a dick out of me. And there's a few stock comebacks you can use. So he keeps going on at me, and he's looking for people to like get into this. And I said, "What? You're looking me to work?" I was like, "No, I'm off duty." And I said, "What do you work at?" And he said, so he wouldn't say. And somebody he was with goes, "He's a grave digger." And he goes, I said, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Yeah. What do you think about that?" And I said, "Well, look, you're asking me to tell jokes. I'm not just going to ask you to do your job. Like, I'm not going to tell you to go outside." And in fact, I said, "In fact, go outside and dig a 50-foot hole for me and throw your suit in with it, because that's absolutely brutal." And he couldn't. Now that was just thinking off the cuff, right? It wasn't my best work, but he couldn't deal with it. And he went, "You're a dickhead." And I was like, I've just tried to play at your own game, but stuff like that doesn't happen often at all. I hate doing like that kind of thing. Even people will go, "Mate, give me a slagging." Like, what are you doing? No.
Can't just do
I'm a
that.
roast battle with a guy in the middle of Central.
And here for a bag of Doritos.
Yeah.
But there is a level
like, "Mate, fucking make a dick out of me in front of my wife." No, you're doing that yourself.
But there's a level of jealousy there in it. I think that's what it is. Maybe I'm wrong, like, but people see you doing things you wanted to do with your life. A lot of people almost see that as like, "Fuck's sake, I didn't do anything."
I don't know, mate. Digging graves sounds pretty cool. Like,
you know what I mean? Like, but like maybe that's what his goal was and his dream was. You know what I mean? You never know.
I don't even think it's the people want to be stand-ups. I think to do stand-up or comedy or any sort of performance, you really do have to like put yourself out there and go, "I'm going to try and do this thing." And everyone sees you doing it, if that makes sense. So if it doesn't go well or whatever, people are seeing that. I'm obviously saying like, I think I'm pretty funny here, and I'm going to try and make a career out of it. And when you do that, it's kind of like people get a wee bit offended by you having that confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
And I think we all fall into it in this part of the world. It's very much like, how dare you like try and do this thing that's out of the ordinary. And for years I was a victim of that myself, and I didn't push myself hard enough because I was worried about people would react. You know, if you say like, "Oh, I want to do live at the Apollo," if that was your ambition, people here sometimes would be like, what do you talking about? What do you want to do that for? Whereas if you say that in like New York, they'd be like, "You go for it, buddy. You got this.
Yeah.
I'll drive you there myself." You know,
it's even podcasts, like even just telling someone you do a podcast. If I told certain people that I wouldn't tell, and if I told them, they'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing, you muppet?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, "Dan, but it's your podcast too." No, but like, just it's a weird thing though with the podcast as well. Like, obviously it's different to stand up, but it implies that you think you've got something to say, and like, why would someone listen to that? But you just kind of have to put that to the side.
Yeah,
do
it for yourself.
See, like negative comments or like trolling or whatever it is. It's like if you put a video, people will say like, "Oh, do you get like upset or if there's a negative comment on one of your videos or whatever?" But it's like it's like being able to take it as well as give it out. You can't expect to put something out there and go, "I think this is funny," and not have like some sort of negativity towards it, because you ultimately want the positivity, so you have to be able to take the odd shit comment that comes with it. And I think doing stand-up at a young age helped me with that, because I've been heckled on stage as like as like a nervous 18-year-old. So like a comment on a Facebook video, whatever, isn't gonna have an effect, you know.
Yeah, it's getting you like, almost like a thicker skin to deal with all that negativity. I know, before you go, I just want to ask you about, because you've done a few shows in America recently, well, not recently, a few years back. The one I watched today was, I think it was the Laugh Factory in Chicago, which, by the way, was a funny set. Do you think there's a difference in terms of American audience? Like certain jokes land differently? Is there a different way you prepare jokes when you're compared to an Irish audience and compared to American audience?
I just take out any references, like any local references that you would have to explain to someone, because if you have to explain it, you're eating away from funny time. So take the references out, and the only thing I do differently is just slow down the way I'm talking a wee bit, because we speak so fast.
Yeah.
And I do, and if I'm nervous, like I would be doing, like Laugh Factory is one of the biggest comedy clubs in the world. So if I'm performing there, I'm shitting myself. So it would be within my nature to speak quickly in that situation. So I just slow it down, and that's kind of it. Like funny's funny. Like if you're funny, you can do it anywhere. But if you do rely too much on
local humor,
punchline to every bit of material, then it's not going to translate. But if you have like a set that's a bit more universal, people are going to identify with it. Like when I was doing that gig, or when I go to America, I'll do like a fair bit of material about like being Irish and being Irish abroad, and because everyone can identify with that, you know, especially people in big cities in America, because they're all from different places. So I just slow it down, like.
Yeah, that joke you did, I don't think it was like at the Laugh Factory, but the one you're doing, we were going in the Starbucks asking for tea. I think it was that in Boston, was that there, or was that Chicago?
That was in Chicago. That's the gig you're talking about.
Oh my God, that was fucking hilarious.
The thing with that is, that was an old bit of material that I've been doing for a while, and I wanted to move on and do newer stuff. But I'd done a gig in that venue earlier that night, and I just felt a longer story would work. So I like brought it back almost.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done the material in about a year, and it had never got a reaction like that. So you can see me, how excited I am in the video, because I had missed doing the bit, and it went so well that it shocked me. Like I'm looking at people being like, "The fuck are you laughing at that?" Like, it's all right, like, but it's not this good. So that was the fact that here's the thing: they filmed. I was supposed to get a set filmed that night by their in-house camera guy, and he was supposed to film the first set of the night that I did that didn't go anywhere near as good as that. So I was ripping that he hadn't showed up, and he was like, "Mate, I'll come down. I'll film the later one." And I was like, "Well, that's no good to me." And then it happened to be the better set, so it kind of worked out okay.
Yeah. Here, before you go, I know we said just a half an hour, but we're talking to William Thompson.
I'll be charging you. So yeah, what is it? You're talking to William Thompson, yeah.
Yeah, he was on our podcast a few months ago, and he was talking about when he first started doing stand-up, and what he said like, you almost need for your first gig to bomb, because it gives you a thicker skin. It makes you almost prepare better. Would you agree with that there?
Yeah. It doesn't need to be your first gig, but
early on.
And you don't need to bomb as such. You just need to be doing a lot of different types of gigs, and inevitably you will bomb. You will eat shit at some of them. You have to, and you have to go out of your comfort zone, because I've seen people that aren't used to bombing because they're only doing gigs they're comfortable with, and I've seen people do big important gigs that have never bombed, and I've seen it in their face where they go, "I don't know what to do here." Whereas I spent years getting no reaction from stand-up, so I know how to change it up. But I've seen it in someone's face not that long ago where they're probably used to comfortable gigs, and then we did a gig together, and you could tell that it was like, "Oh shit, what do I do here?"
Can you remember the first time you bombed?
Yeah, my first gig. First gig.
How bad was it? Was it dead silence, or was it just a
no? People felt bad for me because I looked about 13. I had a really young face, like, so I got away with it because I was sort of talking about like, oh, I was like, this is going so badly, so they were laughing at that. But then my second gig went unbelievable, and I thought, that's me sorted now. I know how to do stand up. So the first gig went bad, second gig went great, and then for about 3 years, it was just fine. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But it kind of worked itself out in the end.
We'll leave it there anyway. So again, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's great to talk to you. And
could you maybe make a dick out of me in front of Dan?
Oh, can you please,
Yeah.
I'll call my girlfriend in.
Listen, when you took your cap off, you did it yourself. So I don't need to. Yeah,
I knew it was going to be her.
I don't need to do it. I know. And listen, there's nothing wrong with her. I'm just saying, if you went into a snooker hall, you come out with chalk in your head. But
Good
listen, it's a good time. I'm sorry I had to do a shorter one, but I will definitely come back on in a few months' time, whatever, and we'll do a 7-hour podcast, whatever it is.
I'll hold you to that, Shane, okay, mate?
No worries. No worries. Cheers, boys.
See you later, mate.
And I'm actually leaving here, okay, just in case we're doing like a wrap-up.
No,
chat.
yes, get off
I'm
quick.
gone. I'm already away. Cheers.
Bye-bye, mate. All the best. You still away, Shane? You still there?
You are now listening to MCPodcasting.